live across the World Wide Web. And for those of you who are looking for your legislator, what district, Chris? What's your district?
5.
District 5.
Always out working.
We're in the, try not to make me laugh. We're in the middle of, we have District 5 legislator, Chris Robbins with us. So welcome, Mr. Robbins. Thank you, thank you. Good evening, everyone. We, board members and viewing audience and our live studio audience, which we're glad to have today. I want to just give you the lineup for this evening. We are going to have our curriculum team of Buckman and Carella, Carella and Buckman, make a presentation that I'm going to introduce in a minute. We have an agenda review. It's a short agenda this month, but we'll review that. I do, board members, have a number of updates for you with respect to the calendar in the month of November, and about 7 or 8 district-wide updates that I'd like to go through with you so that you're well informed and well prepared. And then we need a 1-item executive session this evening. I'll read the reason at the appropriate time. There will be no action taken afterwards. So that's the lineup. That's the anticipatory set. There's a lot of educators here. I'm trying to use good educational terms here. That's the anticipatory set of what we're going to be doing this evening. First of all, let me make some comments with respect to our first agenda item. We want to express that it's been really nice in the last month or two to be talking about instruction and learning. And this is with no affront to maintenance or budgets or anything else. But too often, I think we get caught up in talking about steam traps, steam valves, audit reports, and everything else. And it's really been nice to be engaging in conversations about why we're really here, and that is for learning and instruction. And I really welcome that conversation. I also want to take a moment before Rick and Carrie present to honor our teachers. And tonight I'm going to honor particularly our kindergarten through third grade teachers. And not that the 4 to 12 teachers don't work hard and do everything else, but our kindergarten through third grade teachers have really, they really have a very tough job. They have a tough job. The art of teaching children to read and compute is one that they don't take lightly, that is very complicated, and it's very complicated when you have 22 to 25 students, all of varying backgrounds and varying levels. I do believe that this board and our team has done the best job that we could in terms of being responsive to the varied, multiple array of learners that we have. Having said that, it would be less than good leadership for us to not take a look at the practices that we're doing in any area frequently. But I want to tell those kindergarten through third grade teachers, because there has been such a focus on the reading wars, as they call it, that we're proud of your work. We thank you for your work. We're here to support you and help you. And you've done a darn good job with our kids. I mean that from the bottom of my heart with all sincerity. As was mentioned in a previous meeting, by September 1st, we have to provide an attestation to something called the Science of Reading and our district alignment. And one of the reasons why I'd like Rick and Carrie to make this presentation to you is to show you that we have been working on this. This is not new, and this is not something that we're not prepared to do, even though we've got to take some really strong looks at things. But we're moving our way there. We're not there all the way, and we need to work together to take a look at everything that we're going to do. So with that, I want to introduce Rick and Carrie. I'm starting to learn more, honestly, about the science of reading, but I really think that's a bit of a misnomer too, because it should be, I think, called the science of learning. It's really about the science of how kids learn, and how, and of course, reading is a big part of it. It falls into math and other areas. So we wanted to give you, board members, community, staff, a snapshot of where we have been, where we are, and where we think we need to go. And I'm really pleased and have great faith in Rick's guidance and leadership. And of course, not only as a great principal at the high school, but at Calfus, it's wonderful to have Carrie Buckman now on the team. So without any additional preamble, Rick and Carrie, would you come forward, please, and make your presentation for this evening? And I know that something I said. Oh, okay. It got me nervous there. Tony popped up when I said Rick Corella. Tony popped out of his chair. I don't know what happened. So, all right. So, okay. Well, you think Rick knows it's 40 minutes. He's not going to keep you all. It's 40. He's not going to keep you here all night. But
not at all.
Rick, would you with Carrie, would you take the board through a walk through where we are, what we need to do, and where we're going, and next steps?
Certainly. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. I'll go as quickly as I can. I know you have had some previous information from myself and others on the science of reading, so I don't want to belabor the point, but I want to show you this agenda and tell you where I'll be spending most of the time. I just want to review with you very quickly what the science of reading is and is not, the NICED mandates that Mr. Laurie alluded to. I want to show you a set of district goals that we've developed in regard to this initiative. And also, the main part of our discussion tonight will be around 3 points. Our current curriculum and resources. And when we are talking about that, even though the science of reading has implications for instruction in grades pre-K all the way through 12, right now, we are concentrating on grades kindergarten through 3. So it's important to note that. It's not that the other levels will not get their due or get a review, but at this point we are really talking about the critical learning years where students learn their foundational skills in grades K to 3. I'll give you an update on where we believe we are currently with our strengths and needs, and then most importantly an activity timeline that will lead us up to the date of September 1st, 2025 that Mr. Laurie mentioned. Okay. So what is the science of reading? It is really very hard to define because it isn't really one thing. It's a term, a very broad term for a consensus view on what literacy instructional practices work best for teaching reading. It's really a list of common themes and practices that traverse many, many years of research, and also, in the second bullet, multiple fields, such as developmental psychology, linguistics, and implementation science, or what is working in schools. So it's not a narrow, prescriptive way to teach reading for all learners. It's not meant to be one size fits all. According to the Reading League, I wanted to lift a little bit of information from their site. You again heard this mentioned a couple of weeks ago. The Reading League is a non-profit science of reading organization that provides information, training, conferences for teachers and other educators, and a lot of good instructional materials and guidance. And I found myself visiting that site quite a bit over the last several months. But I really liked how they phrased these bullets here. It is not an ideology or a philosophy. It's not a fad, a trend, or a new idea. It's not a political agenda. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach, nor is it any single specific component of instruction such as phonics. Phonics, for example, or probably the better term is foundational skills, get a lot of attention in the discussion, but it's not the only piece. And none of these pieces are foreign to us as educators, and they are not, to any degree, missing from our curriculum either. debunking common myths. This information here comes from the Science of Reading Brief number 2. I'll talk a little bit about what the state has released thus far in regard to guidance for school districts. The Science of Reading Briefs were the first guidance documents to appear. It doesn't show it well here in our slides, but many of the documents that I'm referencing are linked in the PowerPoint. So once this is posted, you can go back and look directly at the documents that I'm referencing. So the first point here is the Science of Reading is not one single instructional approach. It is not a tangible program or curriculum. And I can't stress that enough. If I had to pick one point where there is a lot of misinformation swirling around, it would be that the Science of Reading is a tangible program or a curriculum. It is more about what we teach and how we teach it rather than with what we teach. It is program agnostic. It is resource agnostic. So the term's value is derived from its emphasis on research findings, practices and principles that we should use when we're either designing our own curriculum or selecting one. The Science of Reading does not mean that we should focus on teaching skills in isolation. Sometimes we would call that kill and drill, where we just review over and over and over again certain rules or certain isolated exercises that we think or hope will apply to reading with comprehension someday. That's not what it is. So effective curriculum and approaches should match learning targets with a range of appropriate strategies, ranging from isolated practice, which has its place, to integrated application. The Science of Reading demonstrates that effective literacy instruction is limited to promoting the acquisition of code-based skills such as phonics and decoding. That is a myth to the extent that phonics instruction is imperative and has been one of the most neglected practices in recent history as far as how our approaches have materialized in schools. And so it has kind of rightly taken center stage in the discussion. We as a district are extremely well situated with our phonics or foundational skills instruction. And that the Science of Reading does not take into account culturally responsive teaching. It definitely does. There is no contradiction between culturally responsive sustaining education and the guidance that comes from our state education department about making good decisions in that regard, and what should be going on in classrooms as far as the literature that we use, our expectations for students, and the supports that we should give them. So the timeline that Mr. Laurie mentioned, if you think about this year in review, on the 3rd of January, Governor Hochul was leading up to her State of the State address, and every couple of days she was dropping little nuggets of policies that she was going to weave into the state budget. And one of them was her Back to Basics initiative, with proposed investments for teacher training and teacher preparation programs so that school districts would align better to the Science of Reading. On the 10th, NICE had released the first drafts of the Science of Reading briefs, which I referred to and quoted earlier. There are 7 of those briefs. They truly are very brief. They are not very long documents, and they're more general in nature. They came out in final form in February. On June 4th, NICE had released their K-3 literacy curriculum guide and FAQ document. That is a guide that organizes essential questions districts should consider when they're selecting or creating literacy curriculum. And it's organized around 5 domains. The Science of Reading alignment is just one of the 5 considerations or the 5 domains. What is pending is by this coming year, or the 1st of January, NICE is supposed to release to us more detailed instructional guidance beyond the briefs. It's November now, so I'm assuming that that's going to be coming very, very soon if they're to hit that target date. And then, as Mr. Laurie mentioned, by 9/1/25, we have to complete some kind of a report or a reporting exercise in which we attest to our alignment, at least for grades K through 3, to the body of research known as the science of reading. So we have a lot to do between now and then, so I want to take you through that. These are our district goals in regard to the science of reading, and they're impactful because we have to consider these as we make each decision. We know that change and updating our practices is a process, and it takes time. And if the adults in schools are not prepared for it, well-versed in it, and have been given an opportunity to wrap their heads around it, nothing will actually change. So the first couple of bullets address that need. The first one is that we want to ensure that all of our teachers provide direct instruction in phonemic awareness and phonics. That is what we have been working on. That's been our top priority of the last 2 years, and I'll review with you how well situated we are there. We want to enhance and continually enhance our district-wide response to intervention program. You've heard me refer to that as the PEP program. Carrie will give you some more details on that. That is an ever-present support that we have to make sure is constantly reviewed and updated. We need to provide job-embedded professional learning and coaching support for our classroom teachers and interventionists. Based on whatever shifts we need to make instructionally, there will need to be an exponential amount of training, guidance, and reflection that goes along with making those changes. We have to really continue our emphasis on looking at student data, continually analyzing the progress that students are making on a variety of formative and summative assessments, so that we really can automatically exercise a teach, test, respond learning cycle. We teach, we test, we know what our students have learned, what they haven't, and then we respond, either with reteaching or modifying our curriculum or approach or whatever that may be. But that teach, test, respond cycle is very important. We need to use the NICED guidance and other resources that we can gather to vet our current instructional materials. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that as well. And then we have to use NICED's guidance and any available research to identify those shifts. We need to not only identify them, but we need to prioritize them, and then we need to have a plan for doing so. This is where I'll spend the majority of my time, our current strengths and needs. In regard to phonological awareness, phonics, word recognition, handwriting, and spelling, we have used since 2011 the Wilson Language Foundations program. It is a K-3 program. It is a Tier 1 program primarily, meaning it is taught to every child every day in grades K through 2. This year, we are moving it into 3rd grade. That is the extent of the sequence of the program. It is a K-3 program. We made the decision to have the entire scope present. So we have that in all 8 of our elementary schools.
Rick, we also use products in our sister schools,
Correct.
but they don't remove foundations in any way.
Right. We have 2 main core resources that we use, one in the sister schools, one in the remaining schools, but it is an important point that the Foundation Skills program is taught in all 8 of our schools.
Okay.
And I'll stress that again a little bit later in a future slide.
But we do it across the board.
Yes.
Even though we do some additional programs that you'll get to in our
Right.
sister schools. Okay.
Right. That component is consistent across buildings.
Okay.
That's the cornerstone. So it's a multisensory structured literacy approach. It's really like a gold standard program that's aligned to the science of reading, so we're very fortunate in having it and we had a good grounding in it, and as I'll explain, we needed to shore it up a little bit. We expanded it, and we upped our game with training because we've got a lot of new and novice teachers in our ranks, and we've talked a little bit about that. When you graciously approve the funding and other initiatives for teacher training, we often talk about the continual need, that it really never goes away. So it's explicit and systematic, which are two terms that you're going to hear are musts for a foundational skills program. It's interactive, it's diagnostic, it's mastery driven. The instruction is cumulative, and it continually provides a review and immediate feedback loop as our pupils learn to read. The program is appropriate and beneficial for all learners. That includes students with various learning disabilities and English language learners. And we have many of such in our district. Okay? It's a year-long curriculum, and it's taught alongside a core or literature-based language arts program. It includes a wide variety of text experiences and exposure to poetry, narrative, and information text. That, I'm speaking about the core, so I'll go into that next. Again, attached to this PowerPoint are two links about foundations. The first is a very good document that shows the alignment of the content of the Foundations program to the science of reading research. So that's an alignment document or crosswalk. The second link is to the Foundations curriculum itself. So if anyone wanted to know what is taught at each grade level and when, they can just simply look at that. More on our current status and needs. So we just mentioned how Foundations needs to be the underpinning of a core program that teaches comprehension, develops oral language and vocabulary, writing genres, and that goes from K to 5 in this slide here. We have two core resources, Mr. Laurie, which you were alluding to. Wonders is from McGraw-Hill Publishing. That is the core resource at all of the schools that are not our two sister schools. And when I'm referring to those schools, I mean Bond and Kelfis Primary Schools. The link underneath there is an overview of the Wonders program. Where do we stand in regard to the science of reading and Wonders? Well, I mentioned the Reading League earlier. Since 2022, the Reading League has been producing what they call curriculum navigation reports. A publisher must agree to have its resource rated by volunteers who work for the Reading League, and they identify what they call red flag practices, or those practices that are not aligned with the science of reading. The Reading League found that Wonders 2023, which is the resource that we use, overall meets or mostly meets all SOR criteria. There is very minimal evidence of red flag practices. The full report is linked below. And what's really important to mention here as well is any red flag practices that were found in that review were mostly in regard to teaching phonics and foundational skills, which we don't use Wonders for. That's why we and many other districts use the Foundations program and then layer another core program on top of it for these other areas. That's exactly why we do it. So we're very well situated there. The curriculum decision makers, the Reading League, link there is to another document that explains in depth. Actually, that is not a document per se. That is a link to the portion of the Reading League's website where you can find all of the navigation reports, the process that they follow, and how they deal with each publisher. including they give each publisher the opportunity to write a rebuttal to the review and to clarify any points that they think the reviewers may have misconstrued. So it's a very tight process. Fontes and Pinnell Classroom, that's the full name of it, is our core resource on top of Foundations at our primary sister schools. That is from Heinemann Publishing. So the link that is third, or second from the bottom there, is the Fontes and Pinnell curriculum overview. It is sold as a K-6 program. We only use it in grades K-2 at the two sister schools. Now, reviews of this program, it has not been reviewed by the Reading League, but other groups such as Ed Reports, which you may have heard of, have reviewed it, and they gave it low marks for its phonics program and questioned some of the text complexity and rigor of some of the writing assignments that are in the other components of the program. So for what I think is a balanced view of the pros and cons of Fontes and Pinnell, that final link there is to an Education Week article that comments on that program and another one that we do not use. But it gives a good balanced assessment of how that program stands in regard to the science of reading.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And I should know this. I want to make sure I'm clear on it, and I know you know it. Could you go back a slide? We use Fontes and Pinnell. I just want to punctuate, as I like to do with you, a clear understanding. We use Fontes and Pinnell in our two sister schools, Bond and Kelvis.
Correct.
But it's not the core phonics program of those schools.
That's right.
Is that right?
That's right. And the schools that use Wonders, we do not use any of the Wonders phonics program either. We use Foundations.
So at the core is Foundations, and in the sister schools, it's Fontes and Pinnell and Wonders in the other schools. And they serve a different purpose other than the basic phonics program
Yeah,
for the kids.
it's a different component of skills kids need for learning to read. The Wilson Language Foundations is the program we use for teaching foundational skills. Phonemic awareness, sounds, and
In 30
phonics.
seconds or less, and I'll be done, because I know it's for the board, but Fontes and Pinnell and Wonders bring other strategies and skills to kids.
Right, and those are listed at the top of the slide. So that's what we use to teach text comprehension, to reinforce oral language and vocabulary, writing genres, and also I should mention read aloud as well, because a key part of developing oral language is interactive read alouds with young children.
Yeah. So it gets low marks. We admit, it's there, but it's not the core SOR program, so to
Right.
speak. Okay. Got it.
Okay. Carrie's going to talk a
Good
little bit
luck,
about
Carrie.
our PET program.
On your maiden voyage here, good luck.
Good evening. So to continue down the path of the tiers, you've just heard about Tier 1, our core programming, and to branch off of that, our schools, our 8 elementary schools, utilize a screener called AimsWeb, and all of our children go through the screening 3 times a year during the fall, the winter, and the spring. And with that, students who are struggling and need to receive extra help are identified through this screener. So they can be placed in Tier 2, or they can be placed in Tier 3. And with that, they receive basically specialized instruction. And what we do is we use a menu of interventions and tailor it to the child. So we have a menu, we have a handbook that we follow. So we use the student's screening scores, we use our knowledge of the student, and we use our menu of resources to decide how we're going to help this child build his or her fluency. So they're listed here for you. And the students are monitored either weekly or every other week to see how that particular intervention is working. They are able, the interventionists, we have lead PEP teachers who are working alongside multiple full and part-time PEP interventionists to support the children and support their reading growth. So they will monitor weekly or every other week, as I mentioned, and then determine how the intervention is working. And if changes are necessary based on a student's lack of progress, they have the freedom and the flexibility to change the intervention and continue to monitor so that they can see if a different intervention will work. And at this time, our menu, that's how we refer to this list of interventions, our menu is fluid as well. So if there is another intervention that comes on our radar through our research and our expertise, we are able to go through a process and determine if it's something that we want to bring on board, and we can pilot it and see if it's something that we want to use, if it's beneficial to our students, and we can add it to our menu, okay? And that's what we'll do throughout the coming days. So we'll have a committee. We'll continue to look at options that are available to us so that we can give our very best efforts to our students and make sure that they're learning and progressing and their reading skills are being built. Okay, I think I will turn it back to Mr. Krella.
Thank you, Carrie. Okay, folks, we're going into the home stretch here. So here I want to review what we need to do yet. I'll start with what we've already accomplished and what we need to do between now and September of 2025. So here are some essential questions and activities. The first thing is we have to determine where our needs are, which we already have, and we have to decide, will we, after that review, will we modify or change, and what modifications or changes or swaps do we need to make to our core resource materials for teaching comprehension, oral language, writing genres, and vocabulary at the sister schools. We need to determine what shifts are needed to our current model of differentiated small group instruction. Some people call that guided reading. Others call it structured literacy groups. There are a variety of names that it is referred to. One thing I would mention in regard to this is that you may hear some folks say, well, you just have to stop guided reading. Well, that is a very broad statement that we need to be very cautious about. Children need scaffolded instruction in small groups when they're grouped around similar needs and skills where they need more help. That needs to continue. The question is, what types of strategies work best when you're doing that, and what teacher actions and what student actions should be in place within a small structured group like that. So there is a debate as to whether or not students should be in what I might call just right texts or instructional level texts, or should they be attempting to read in those groups a text that is just a little beyond their reach with a lot of scaffolding from their teacher or a lot of assistance from their teacher and peers. That really is what we have to determine. So we are not going to stop the practice of small differentiated instructional groupings, but we need to examine how we go about expediting those. And any changes we need to make would be instructional shifts that we have to support by building teacher understanding around them and training around them, okay? And then we have to, as Carrie mentioned, continually revisit our intervention menu. It is very solid. Most of the research, most of the programs on the list that Carrie showed you are science of reading aligned interventions because they focus primarily on decoding and building foundational skills. Most children who are struggling with reading have inadequate foundational skills. So the intervention programs in that category are going to be predominantly focused on that. However, you heard me mention earlier that it is not one size fits all. There are cases where students may have mastered the code and can decode, but lack comprehension. One of the programs that is on our menu, it's called Failure-Free Reading, is a program that is meant for those types of students. They don't have decoding difficulty, but they have difficulty with reading fluency and gathering meaning from the text. And then the final thing that we'll do that we've already begun is looking at our grades 6 through 8 curriculum and refine its alignment to the science of reading. It is actually, as in its current state, fairly well aligned, but we've begun a process to renew our resources. And one of the things that we've discovered through looking at the state guidance documents is that we currently do not meet the threshold of time that we should be spending developing advanced vocabulary for our middle school kids. So that we know is an area of need. We also need to get better at short assessments that we can give our middle school students that don't take a long time because time is at a premium in the secondary schools. They run on a period by period schedule. It's not like the elementary level. So we're always mindful of that, but we need to be more adept at gathering formative assessment data that can inform a teacher's instruction. So here are the phases, and I'll take you through this as quickly as I can. I'll take you back to the summer of and fall of 2023. We selected and trained our RTI, our PEP lead teachers for all elementary schools and put them in place in the fall. So we upgraded that entire programming. The next thing that we did is we expanded the menu and added some additional research-based intervention programs. They were listed on that former slide. We addressed material and training gaps to ensure that all of our kindergarten through grade 2 teachers were able to teach Wilson Language Foundations Tier 1 with fidelity. What we had is we had many new teachers who had had inadequate training, and then we had many veteran teachers who expressed the need for refreshed training. We also refreshed our resources at the same time to make sure that we had the latest versions of everything. And again, we talked quite a bit about the advantages of having the ARP grant funding after the pandemic to address learning loss, and those funds helped us to build these programs up tremendously. And then we updated our kindergarten to grade 5 ELA curriculum with the new core resources that I just discussed. So phase 2 is winter and spring of 2024. What we did was we selected 3 teachers to receive training and certification for in-district coaching and training on the Wilson Language Foundations program. It is such a major undertaking and need that, and forgive me for repeating myself because I know that we've talked about this before in prior meetings. In order to build our internal capacity, I wanted to have trained facilitators that had the credentials to do all of our in-district training and teacher support without having to spend thousands of dollars per day with the company to do that. So it's a great, great investment. We have 3 fully trained and certified Foundations trainers currently. We participated in a Fulcrum Literacy Diagnostic virtual interview that was meant to help us identify strengths and needs of our programming. That was, I believe, in February. We assessed the strengths and needs of our K-2 Foundation's implementation in the spring, and then we planned a full summer of differentiated professional development for our teachers. Not just basic, how do you teach the program training, but really in-depth training that gave teachers more practice and background on the parts of the program that they found either challenging or that they wanted to know more about, so that they would feel more confident teaching their students. Because it sounds easy to do, it is actually a very complicated thing to teach. As adult readers, we've all mastered our foundational skills to automaticity. We don't think about it very much, but when you try to work backward and break it down to teach a child, it's a very complex endeavor. We began to look at as a group, my staff and I began to look at the guidance that NICED had released up to that point, including the literacy review guide. And then I also conferenced with some Reading League volunteers who work with the district in a different capacity on creating roadmaps for alignment. So I was able to have some discussions with them about how do we actually make shifts that will last without throwing out all of our resources, because that's really not a financially sound thing to do, nor is it really part of the science of reading. It really is about what we teach and how we teach it, not with what we teach. So those conversations were very informative for me. Summer and fall of '24, we had 90 teachers participate in our Foundations practice workshops this summer. We had them at 79th Street. Throughout the entire summer, we kind of started slower in July, and then we picked up the pace in August when teachers began to return, set up their rooms, and were ready for professional learning. We began our 6 through 8 teacher committee that used the NICED resources on the science of reading, and we did quite a bit of work over the summer, and we have narrowed it down to 3 resources that we are piloting right now, one of them being a science of reading intervention for grades 6 through 8. Intervention can be a very tough thing to broach with older students, so we felt that we needed some more resources there. We created a plan for the introduction of the Wilson Readers. When I say Wilson Readers, what I mean is a piece that has been missing and is essential is what we call decodable or program texts, which are stories, and they look like storybooks, but they are artificial to a degree in that most of the words in the story are based on phonics rules and skills kids have just learned. So it gives them in context practice. It's a very important tool, and we had programmed readers and other decodables from a variety of sources, but they weren't directly aligned to our Wilson Language program. So Wilson Language produced them this spring. So we quickly purchased them, and we began piloting them at the beginning of this school year. And just this week, we rolled them out to teachers in K1 and 2. I didn't want to just give the teachers the materials and say, good luck. I wanted to have a formal launch where they were able to get guidance on how to use them. We began the rollout of grade 3 foundations with Hyde Park as our demonstration school. So between now and February, we'll train all of our current 3rd grade teachers, and they will get about half a year of the program taught so that we can hit the ground running in September of '25. And then the final stretch here, would be to introduce the Wilson Readers or the decodable text for grade 3, hopefully starting this spring. I need to work with my staff on continually aligning the resources and instructional practices that we've been talking about. If you recall those essential questions that I mentioned, we have to answer those essential questions. We have to do more research. We have to talk with folks that have been advising us from the Reading League and from Wilson Language and from other credible sources to gather as much information as we can, and we have to make some decisions about what we will change and when. And of course, how we need to go about doing that. So by about May, we will need to have a summer training calendar prepared so that we can meet these outcomes. Even though this is starting earlier, in fact, this is starting in December with a meeting that I'm doing with all of our elementary teachers. But we need to build conceptual understanding and awareness across all of our grade levels at the elementary level and all of our teachers. Many of our teachers know about the science of reading, and they're a little more versed in it than some of their colleagues. I need to level that playing field and make sure that everyone has a basic understanding so that they understand the why. If you've ever heard of like Simon Sinek, he's one of my favorite authors about organizational change. Mr. Lawyer, you've
I've
never
heard of him. No.
You've never heard of him? His books are very interesting.
Science Cynic?
Simon Sinek.
Simon Sinek.
Yeah, but he talks about finding your why.
Oh.
And if you don't understand why you're doing something, or why you're learning something, then the learning isn't going to stick, and you're not going to see any positive changes from it. So we have to make sure that is very solid. And then we have to make a plan, like I mentioned, for implementing the instructional shifts. For example, a fresh look at how we do small group instruction. And then create, have that timeline ready by May, which I think I already mentioned. And then I think I also mentioned that we'll have a busy summer of professional learning and getting ready for that September 1st deadline, which I did budget for so that we can incentivize teachers to take the various trainings that we'll be offering to accomplish all of these goals.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Loy, that really
Yep.
wraps it up.
What I'd like to do now, first of all, Simon, what's his name?
I believe it's Senek.
Okay, I found myself. I know where I'm at. I don't have any questions for him. The why? I'm here.
Okay.
Because I like being here. I found it. So I'd really like to pause before I put a bow on this. Open it up to board members for Carrie and Rick, if you don't mind. Board members. It was a pretty comprehensive presentation as to where we are and where we need to go. I have 5 concluding points, but I want to let board members ask.
Okay, I got a question. Okay, what do we do if a student still doesn't respond to the attempts? As, they're lacking, they're falling behind.
Sure. So, and that happens, that does happen. So it's always, Mr. Krella mentioned that test, change, respond, monitor. So you can change the intervention, give it some time, see if the intervention works, see if the student makes gains. You're in constant contact with the parents, making sure that everyone is helping and on board. And we have START teams at the elementary schools, and that's another group that can offer insight, opinions, help, suggestions for how to intervene and help the student. Because there may be other situations at play that are impacting the student's inability to make reading progress.
I've got 1 or 2.
Okay, Mr.
You
Valero.
answered, I had a bunch written down, but you answered most of it as the program, your presentation continued. I know we supported the PEP program from its inception back, and we were big supporters of it. Is it still
important in the instructional plan?
The PEP program?
Yeah.
Yes, you know, and
And the other thing, the other part of it is, it's still important, and have we seen progress with it?
yes, we have. In fact, I showed you some, Mr. Laurie calls it the Christmas tree data.
Yeah.
The tier transition reports. I think we gave you a mid-year look at those. So right now, we are preparing a view of last year, so you can see what progress was made last year, and then take a look at where our baseline for this year.
And this is still going to be part of the
It is, and you know,
program.
I didn't refer to it as PEP.
Yeah,
but
well,
so
that's what I-
I kept calling it the RTI program, or response to intervention. PEP is our internal district name for it,
Yeah.
but it is one and the same
Okay.
thing. So
And-
it's definitely alive and well.
And just
And
the
I
other-
think we have a couple of PEP interventionists here, actually.
And the other thing is, on my own thing, we have a 6th through 8th grade program also. I'd like
Yes.
to see that expanded or even more resources donated towards that, if we can.
Yes,
Because
we
you know,
are,
some
yeah.
kids come in from districts, and well, you know much more than I do, but kids learn at different rates, so in
They
different
do.
times and different speeds. So this might be a good stepping stone from them getting to high school and even college. You know, so I'd like to see
they
more. I'd
absolutely
like to see
do.
more effort in that area
Yes.
in 6th, 8th
Yeah,
graders.
we have two pilots that are currently ongoing, and one of them is an intervention program, and we have about, Chris, we have 10 teachers trying that program. I think we have 10 teachers that are 7 that are testing that out, and then we have a smaller group of 5 teachers that are testing out units from 2 core resources. And then we have a smaller group that is testing a newer version of the resource that we currently use. So, you know, we're really trying to take an in-depth look. That we typically follow this process, and it serves us very well. We take at least 12 months before making decisions on which core resources to adopt. Actually, the last couple of adoptions have been longer than 12 months. We've spent about 18 months. But it's really time well spent. They do, and they're providing. I'm seeing on the market right now with the research that we're doing, a lot more resources or product that is applicable to kids that are in middle school all the way through adulthood. And in some cases, it can be very difficult to find engaging material because it needs to be written for a very low skill level, but be at an interest and content level that's suitable for a teen or an adult. So that's a particular niche that we have to fill.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you.
Others?
Rick, you have to forgive me, it might sound like simple questions, but I'm a boiler guy and plumbing guy, so it takes me a little longer.
I don't know anything about steam traps, Rob.
I could tell you all about them. Is the state requiring this, the science of reading? Is that where they're pushing us?
Yes, they want us to make sure that our practices and curriculum are aligned to the science of reading. Where the flexibility comes in is we get to make those decisions based on their guidance and the research. So what any given district will need to do to align to the science of reading is going to be different. I hope I did a good job of showing you what our current status is and what our strengths and needs are. It's pretty easy to figure out where we need to do more research and then make some shifts, and what we don't need to touch. And I tried to show you both of those. You know, I think I mentioned too, there are some common threads among many districts. I think the 2 most common is how we approach small group instruction and the teaching of phonics or foundational skills. Those are the 2 biggest weaknesses that I would say most districts would say they have across the board. We are much better situated with our foundational skills program, luckily. So we need to make a lot of more subtle shifts and changes in focus. So that's really where we have to go. but it's still a lot of work. I don't want to minimize what that effort will take.
Is the state, another state mandate, this is the way we should go? Have they tested this? Are they gonna fund this? Or are
Well,
they saying you're gonna do this?
There are a couple of issues I have with how they're proceeding. The one is, I mentioned training for teachers. Okay.
But you're talking about, you know, just top of my head, 3 staff members that are, we're gonna train to train. I mean, there's
Right.
3 salaries plus all this extra training, you know, not that it's not worth it, but
Right.
The state likes to spend our money.
Well, they gave approximately $10 million to NYSET to create science of reading training modules that I believe are about 30 hours in length.
45?
And the problem with that is that, you know, I'm sure that they're going to be great, but I can't compel anyone to take that. So that's something people would need to do on their own. I haven't been shown yet, maybe there is, a way I can bring it into district and have our teachers participate on time that we control as a district. So I either have to do that or build capacity in another way to make sure all of our teachers are adequately trained. We can't rely on teachers electing to take the extra professional development because only a small percentage of them will. They have other things that compete for their time outside of school. So we can't say that everyone will be able to take this training that the governor is funding. We're still responsible for leveling up all of our teachers on district time. So how we do that, you know, I believe that we do have the internal capacity to do that. What resources will be available to us from the state, we'll have to see. But that is a big something that we have to take a look at. The other thing is that we have, I think I mentioned it earlier, a lot of our resources, what the state is not going to do, which some other states have, is they've made hard and fast rules about what districts may or may not use. They may say, you may not put this intervention on your intervention menu, or you may not use this core resource in any of your schools. We don't believe that New York State is going to do that. Now, we haven't seen the rest of their guidance and what we assume is going to be their most detailed guidance, but we don't think that they're going to do that. Instead, they're going to produce general guidance documents that we're going to have to internalize, then turn around and analyze our own practices and resources with. I don't think they're going to make, I don't mean to be flip, but I call it a naughty list and a nice list. I don't think that they're going to do that. But I could be absolutely wrong. We'll see.
One more and I'll let them move on, let everyone move on. Reading recovery was the best thing since bubblegum. We spent a lot of money, we invested a lot of materials. Are we still with it? Are we still using the materials, or is it out?
No, we are still using it. It's one of the interventions that we're going to examine. It's a very hot, controversial topic right now. There was a study that was released about a year ago that questioned the long-term retention of the skills that, or the skills that kids learn. I shouldn't say that. I'm not being articulate that way. What it really did was it questioned the gains that students make, how long they retain them. I think that's a better way to say it. So it was one study, and it's highly controversial. So, and there's also a lot of misinformation about what reading recovery is and isn't, which could probably be a whole separate presentation, honestly. But so there's a lot of controversy swirling around it. What I've been doing is we still maintain that as an intervention for our very, very lowest functioning first grade students. It is not an intervention that's used with a lot of kids because the way it's designed, it's meant to catch kids up who are so far behind they can't even follow anything that's going on in their literacy instruction in first grade. They're in the bottom 10%. So the program accelerates them to a point where they can begin to benefit from Tier 1 and Tier 2 instruction. Reading recovery is not a be-all, end-all, cure-all kids. It takes kids with serious, serious deficits, and it accelerates them to a point where they can benefit from other interventions. It's also what we call a pre-referral intervention, because if a child does not respond to reading recovery, you can be fairly certain that they might have an underlying learning disability that needs to be investigated.
One more. I'm sorry.
You're like Columbo. He used to get to the case, and then he would have it, and then the people would say they committed the crime. They were like, and then he'd get to the door with the trench coat on, and he goes, one more thing, that knife you had in your hand, did you use it? I'm sorry. Just reminded me of Columbo. Anybody remember that show?
I find this very interesting.
Go ahead, Columbo.
I'm not, I'm a nuts and bolts guy, you put two bolts in and it'll hold. We're going forward, of course, we don't know what the state wants. It seems like we're on a good path, is that correct?
Yes,
We have a
absolutely.
lot of work.
Yeah, I mean, it's not, we're, with all of our professional knowledge, we've been able to determine, based on the research that we've looked at, and all of the information that we've got from state ed and from other sources, we know where our strengths and needs are. I'm very confident in that.
So I'm correct in assuming this is not a panic time, it's gonna be, we're gonna have to put some work in this, but we're gonna get it.
And we have enough time to do it.
Okay.
And we have the internal capacity, mainly due to all the supports that you've provided us, as far as instructional coaching and new materials. You've always approved our workshops that we offer, where we've offered incentives for teachers to take them. So I'm not losing any sleep over it. We will get where we need to be by the deadline.
So actually, Columbo, that was a really good question, by the way. So let me try to summarize all of this and talk about the hows. And I'm really glad you asked the question about reading recovery. I don't regret $1, 1 minute, or one action taken to bring reading recovery to the district. Okay. I don't regret it. I honor the work that was done. Now, just like with steam traps or steam pumps or whatever, things change, and you've got to look at different pressures and different sizes. So I think it would be irresponsible not to look at everything, but I don't regret $1, and we're being audited on it right now. I don't regret one moment or one intervention that those teachers spent with that. But I think it's fair to say we have to look at everything. And I know there are elements in there that have helped kids and that will continue to help teachers in the long run. That's number one. So that's my opinion. Number two, to Russ, to your point, are we ready? Where are we? The area that I feel most vulnerable about, and Rick alluded to it, is third grade. The documents are coming out about third grade. I think we've got some work. We have an idea that how to get there, but we're not K-3. We're K-2 very well going, and we will be K-3 strong. And I would think, in my opinion, that would be an area that would need the most work just to do. Would you agree, disagree, Rick? No. You could disagree with me.
I agree.
All right. Next, I think a seminal date will be January 1st, January 2nd, 2025. Dying to see what the state puts out. Just dying to see what the state puts out. We can't get a sense or feel for it at all. So just let's mark that and put it on our calendars. I think this is two things about this presentation. It gives you a status report of where we currently are, and it's not an easy thing to follow. We live it every day, so we can follow it, but I want to make sure that this is posted tomorrow on our website, and we can point to, here's where we're at, strengths and weaknesses, here's where we have to go. Next point. There is needs for partnerships moving forward. You asked the question again, Russ, about the money. The governor made a decision to give the money to the teachers' education fund. I know, and Rick said it, we can't compel anybody to, but what I do know about the union leadership is that they can help us and will help us stress how important it is for teachers to participate in these workshops and in that training. I know they will support that. I've spoken to their leadership about that, and they will do everything they can to encourage teacher participation to the best of their ability, as will we. Can we compel or force? We can't unless we're doing it during the workday. But I know that they're going to give us I know that they will. And I'm not hopefully speaking out of turn. I know because they value this too, because it's their kids and our kids. So they're going to do that. I know they will. Finally, we can't do this alone. We do this with engagement of a lot of people. I'll stay on the side of the union. This is not Rick Corella and Carrie Buckman going into a room on the second floor going to make this all up. There is no way well, first of all, that's not the right way to do it. And secondly, that's not the contractually protected way to do it, and we're going to follow that. We are going to engage and involve teachers along the way to make sure that this is done with their gobs of years of experience. It's the only way we can do it. Rick, obviously, and Carrie know a lot, but they can't do it alone because what they would create is a very prescribed pathway, but the implemented pathway only comes when teachers are trained, understand it, buy into it, and actually do it in their classrooms. So we can't do this alone. And finally, I appreciate the community support, and Rick mentioned Fulcrum. We've had community stakeholders sit with us to learn these things, and I would encourage everyone to, parents included, administrators included, teachers included, audience members included. We have Dr. Schultz with us today. They've put together a foundational literacy committee. I would ask that people join that group, and that's a way to get engagement from all sides of it. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. I think the question was really, really well put, Russ. Where are we? We're in good shape. We're in good shape. Are we in perfect shape? No. Are we done? No. We have a lot of engagement to do with a lot of stakeholder groups. And this will not be done with Rick and Carrie sitting in their office, sketching it out and coming back to you August 29th and say, here's the plan. It's not going to work that way. I'm not going to lead it that way, and it's not going to happen that way. So I would encourage those to work with the community group. You have my word, because it's not just because it's contractually protected, it's because it's the right thing to do, that we'll work with the professionals that know, that have the most difficult job, sitting in front of 25 first graders, or second graders or kindergartners, which I have to say, and again, with no negative aspersion against any other grade level teacher, that is the most complex, most difficult job going right now, because our kids are coming with oftentimes not enough or anything, and I'm not blaming anyone. It's what we deal with and who we are and what we're up to that challenge. But they have to be at the table. They have to be at the table. And I think we also have a charge to say, and maybe you were alluding to this, Mr. Villado, we can't stop just because the requirement says third grade. What are we doing with fourth, fifth, and sixth graders? What are we doing in middle school? I see middle school administrators out there. What are they doing? Does this have any legs in the high school? I mean, that's a fundamental shift in how high school teachers work. This is a monumental undertaking. What I want to leave you with, in my last words, is because this goes back to, I could mention a person's name who I was thinking about. This goes back to conversations at the board level when I was a teacher or principal, when we talked about, you got to do more phonics. Well, I want you to know we teach phonics. It's not all we teach, but we teach phonics, and we do a very good job of it. But we always have to evaluate what we're doing, listen to our stakeholders, involve our teachers, and move forward for the best success of kids. So I want to commend you, Rick and Carrie. I'll put your presentations up against anybody. I really would. You have a good understanding of the state requirements. You're constantly in those listservs and groups and asking questions. And the beauty here, and I'm not being patronizing at all, is that we have teachers that will work with us that know one heck of a lot based on the experience that they have from sitting in front of 25 kids in first grade. So I say thank you, and this is fun. Okay, this is fun, right? It's really not fun to talk about steam traps and audit reports, and this is why we got into this job. We could talk about, this is fun. I'm down on steam traps tonight. I'm down on them. This is not about change. This is about what we did. This is about what we were trained for. This is why we got into this. But I can't think of a more difficult job than teaching a child how to read. Teaching a child how to read. That is a complex, monumental task. But we're up to it, and together we'll get it done. Thank you.
Thank you.
And now let's talk about steam traps. No. Would you pop up the, or not pop up, Ray, would you put the agenda up for the 21st? There's no board meeting next week. There is a board meeting on the 21st. Maria, are you in the bullpen ready? Well, they're mad. They like steam traps. They're very much into steam traps. All right, we have the usual beginning. There's no bids. The usual items. While Maria comes forward, I'm going to ask her, with your permission, I'm going to skip down to 406 and 407 and give you the personnel reports and ask Maria to smartly go through those. Thank you. Thank you. That's all right. Thank you and thank you. Hi, Edela. How you doing? Nice to see you. I expect Leah because she's in tune. Nice to see you here. She's smart. She's sitting with her colleague. That's why you are who you are, Leah. This is filler time while Maria's working. Maria, take it away.
All right, I got it. Ooh, sorry about that. Projecting this evening. Projecting.
Wow.
Sorry about that.
Wow, she's what? Yeah.
Oh, HR is my life. Okay, so, ladies and gentlemen, we have the certificated report. If you'll begin with me on page 1 of 12, we have 2 retirements and 1 resignation there for you. Turning to the second page, we have 2 probationary appointments. These are both of ELA teachers. And then skipping down to item number 9, which really begins on the top of page 3, we have 2 leaves of absence. And then we begin again with our per diem and our schedule B, C, D, E, F, and G. This is the time of year when we really provide you with all of the schedules. So
Can I punctuate something,
please do
Maria?
punctuate, Mr.
When
Wright.
board members, I just like to say this. When you look at schedule from pages 3 to 6, notice the mostly F codes. Remember, F code is grant and not your general fund. Thanks, Maria.
Okay, so that'll take you really pretty much all the way through the certificated report. You may have some additions for your next report. We're working on a couple of things, and Mr. Laurie may be making some additional recommendations to you.
These, I notice on here are the winter coaches, and these are because the winter sports season starts November 18th.
Yes.
So here are your winter coach recommendations.
Mr. Laurie, while
Yes,
we're
sir.
talking about sports here, do you think we get schedules for our activities?
I don't
please?
think I will get you scheduled, like that one pack.
Yeah.
I'll
So
get
we
for
know
you.
what's going on. Okay, nice.
All right.
Any questions? And if you have any questions about the schedules as you're going through them, one thing to remember about them is that these payments are at the end of the year. These do not get paid all the way through the year. The payments on the schedules get paid at the end of the school year. Next up is the classified report. You'll see several retirements there. Those are retirements of longtime employees. So we're losing a secretary too, a cook, and somebody in Ray's office.
Whoa. Yeah.
Yeah, those are longtime employees. We also had a resignation in Ray's office and a resignation of a food service helper. Moving on, we have hired a secretary at Bleneva Bond. We have some probationary appointments there. Those are associate appointments. We are still hiring associates. Leave of absence there for a cleaner, and some involuntary transfers that we had, and voluntary transfers that we are providing you with. Next up here, the same thing. These are some additional corrections to when we appointed the associates last time. We had to do some corrections regarding these two titles and these two positions. Then we have additional hours. These additional hours are for parent and family engagement, extended school day. Any questions about those?
I want to make a point because it called the board members' attention to page 6 of 6 on the classified report, because it's a little bit unusual. We have 2 coaching appointments on the classified report, Maria, correct?
We do, and one thing to remember about those, Mr. Laurie, I think this is where you were going with it. The coaching appointments are typically under the Niagara Falls Teachers Schedule C. The only time we hire coaches that are not teachers are when none of our current instructional teaching staff has either applied or is interested in being a member. So because these staff members cannot get paid under the Niagara Falls Teachers Contract, they are listed for you under the classified report.
Yeah, that's an unusual kind of
Right.
appointment. Usually they're teachers. So the agreement that we have contractually is the Niagara Falls teachers have the first opportunity to apply, interview, and be certified to coach. If they don't, or there's a sport where there isn't one, we'll go to the classified staff, so it's within district, if that's making sense. But that's a bit of an anomaly on this report,
Right.
I think.
It's very infrequent that happens, but this is one time that it did. Okay? Do you have any
What's
questions?
your prediction for asterisks?
Definitely, well, it depends on your end, on the certificated report. We will probably have some additions on the classified report.
Yeah, I think what Maria's coding is, I've had a very strong interest in hiring coaches for our autism program, for our teachers. I've just met with Maria, I need to sit down with Rick, as a matter of fact, to finish that process. So we talked in the last 2 months about our autism program growing, our younger and newer teachers, and the fact that we want to have coaching and support for them. And they had their interviews. I just need to sit with really Rick and Maria to get their feedback before I make a recommendation. I haven't done that, but that may happen for the 21st.
Thank you.
Thanks. As you go forward, let me go through these short-term contracts with you and give you an explanation of them. The first one is with SUNY Niagara, or Niagara County Community College. We're paying them because all of our students in the P-TECH program are going to get an OSHA 10 card. It was a decision we made to give a certificate in addition to the P-TECH college credits. A student in high school with an OSHA card is certainly helpful. And since our P-TECH kids are into industrial manufacturing, we are using the community college as the teachers to kids in order to get an OSHA card. That's the first one. The second one is to do our winter sports physicals. I've listed 4 dates for winter sports. This afternoon, Mr. Contento added a 5th date, but Tony Cerace's group from the hospital will do our winter sports physicals. SUNY Niagara again, kudos to Blaniva Bond and their administrator who's here, and Dorothy Brundage. They've been doing parent education classes for college credit, and that's what that is, more of it. They've done reading, writing, culinary, and computer science. So those are parent courses. Father and Son is a mentoring program. Lumber City Combat. So let me tell you what that is. Back around March 23rd, we had some unfortunate instances at school where some people got injured, if you recall, and we've been offering a continuous number of courses to help teachers prepare for de-escalation and approaching situations that may be a fight, and how to best address those. So we're training, that this is a training for teachers. This is self-defense training for our teachers. We hope they never have to use this. We hope they never have to use this, but if they do, we want to train them. We are doing assistive technology for our special needs.
I have a question.
Oh, yes, sir.
Is it necessary to go to North Tonawanda for that?
He comes to us.
Oh, he comes to us?
This gentleman was found by Mr. Del Porto, and he comes to us.
Okay.
So he, you know where he does it, Mr. Consemi? He does it in the field house. We put the wrestling mats down, and he teaches it in the field house. So he comes to us. This is the third one of these self-defense training courses. UB is doing assistive technology. I'm going to adjust it. It's not 2,000, it's 1,500. I'll adjust it. And short-term contracts 7, 8, 9, 10 were all for the unbelievable Walk the World cultural celebration. Unfortunately, that happened Saturday, but we did have these vendors and provided food, cultural food to the 700 people who came. I know Mr. Wotan in particular brought his entire family and fed them for the last 2 weeks. But it was great food and a great time, and that's what those are for. Moving ahead to the resolutions. A bit of a short month. I think this is a good sign. 601. Damon University is providing us some kits and toolkits for the science of reading, free kits and materials about the science of reading. We wanted to acknowledge Damon University for their donation. 602 through 606 are grants. These are grants beyond your general fund budget that we've applied for and received. And the first one is acceptance of funds for Pathways in Technology early high school. These are P-TECH. There are 159 students in our P-TECH program currently. This money goes to paying for their courses. Rick was talking earlier. Anybody that's in the P-TECH program gets their community colleges courses paid for by the district. We get the money from this grant. Those are, and Rick could tell you better, and will tell you, some kids have already earned up to 30 or 40 college credits, all free, all free. That's what that grant's for, 159 kids. 603 is, we have to change this title. Each year, we receive $10,000 from the cable fees to support our OSC television studio at Niagara Falls High School. We get that every year. There's about 100 students in the program, and we receive $10,000. 604, Early College Smart Scholars. This is 20 students at Niagara Falls High School, $112,000. They're getting their courses paid for by this grant. So when you think that we have 60 college courses and P-TECH, we're paying through grant money for a lot of college courses.
Mr. Laurie?
Yes.
Can we go back to 603 for a moment?
Yes.
Are we responsible for the maintenance of the equipment there to see it's working?
We buy the equipment, and yes, we are. It becomes property of the school district.
Okay. I don't know if anybody's had the opportunity to attend one of our city council meetings,
Yes.
but the acoustics are terrible. The audience cannot hear what
On the TV broadcast or in there, in the hall? On the TV broadcast or in the hall?
in the hallway.
That would fall into the city's bailiwick. We only provide what you're seeing on channel 1302.
Well, I'm just concerned about whether or not if they can't hear them in the chambers, are they hearing them on the mic that's going out over the airways?
I'll have to watch it again, but I'll have to watch it again, and I'll advise the mayor of that concern.
It's terrible.
Okay. But that money, that $10,000, is to buy equipment for the room at Niagara Falls High School. Just so you know, that's what we use that money for. But I will take your concern to the mayor or the council chairperson.
He's not there.
I will advance your comment, though. 605 is family and community engagement, 125,000. We service close to 200 kids with this grant. This is a lot of mentoring, etc. And finally, our kindergarten, universal kindergarten grant, that's $4,357,010. We service 520 3- and 4-year-olds. That's what that money goes for. We have 2 change orders that I know Mr. Smeal and team brought to Mr. Petrozzi. The first one, and Earl, I'll ask you to jump in. The first one is a change order. It was an unforeseen condition at Gaskill for the air conditioning that's going in. The change order is in the amount of $14,492.52. It has to do with the steel in the dumb waiter at Gaskill. Am I close, Earl?
You are spot on as
Oh,
usual,
you've learned,
Mr.
man. Could you
Ward.
tell I know Russ knows this, could you tell the rest of the board?
Yeah, so what ended up happening is there used to be a dumb waiter that was part of Gaskill. As you know, the kitchen is on the second floor there. So it was a way to get foodstuffs up to the kitchen back in the day, before we installed an actual elevator. That dumb waiter was in the best spot to run the chase, let's call it, for all the piping for the chiller that's going to sit on the independent side of the building. Therefore, the determination was made, everything within that chaseway that was structural to the dumbwaiter had to be removed to make the space for all the piping. And that's why the change.
It was unforeseen when they did the design.
That is correct.
608 is a change order, and this is an omission or error by our architect. The amount is $9,309, and it has to do with the sizing of a valve. That's as far as, yeah?
Why do we have to pay for their mistakes?
Earl, can you talk about that?
Because if we did not, it would, for one thing, it would be called undue enrichment. We are still going to get the enrichment of the properly installed pumps at Cataract Elementary School's boiler plant. The oversight was in the fact that the pumps were spec'd from the boiler manufacturer for a different application. The engineer went with that specification, but for our application, there wasn't enough head pressure from the pumps, so we had to upsize the pumps. All 3 of the pumps were replaced with larger pumps. I have 2 of them as attic stock in case we ever need them for anything, and one of the pumps could not be replaced, or could not be given to us in attic stock because it was already used. They actually ended up taking back one of them, the manufacturer, and gave us credit for that, or this change order would be larger.
So we got something back from it, but we do have a $9,000 change order for an error that they made. And I thought that was a pretty good explanation about, what did you call it, undue?
Undue.
Undue, I never even heard of that, but it sounds good.
I learned from the best, Angelo.
So, yeah, I did. So we did get and you know, we want to keep, well, I believe the cataract situation is all complete.
Yes.
And we
yes.
wanted to keep moving on it.
Yeah.
And you do have some attic stock.
I do.
You know, Nick, just so you know, in those change orders, the word unforeseen I think it's only been used twice,
Yeah, twice so far.
maybe twice so far. I took that out of our vocabulary years ago. And when there's something that's missed, there's usually contributions from everyone.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, and we did, what was this
So
project?
in other words,
20,
we're not taking a full hit on it.
Correct.
No, none of those.
Okay, correct.
What was this capital project, 20?
29.3 million.
30 million, and I think that's the first unforeseen or second?
Second.
Second unforeseen.
And what I try to say at the meetings are we all got some skin in this game. We'll take some, what are you gonna take, and what are you gonna take? In this case, it was just us.
I remember years ago, everything was unforeseen, remember? The
Yep,
old days?
not anymore.
Years back, unforeseen.
Not anymore.
unforeseen.
And again, not to be Pollyanna, but we are fewer than 1% change orders on this project, and we're 80% done. And I will tell you, because it's public knowledge, Danforth, Fry, and Scafari have been very, very good to work with. Very good to work with. As has Stark and the other vendors. Very good to work with. Where I think you'll be happy when we conclude this work, I feel that I'm going to be able to come back to you with a phase 3 of the project, meaning that the money we put in contingency is not going to be needed, meaning that we'll have to design a phase 3 and get more things done. So we're nowhere near going over. I think if we can keep within a couple of change orders more, we're going to present to you 3 or 4 recommended additional items if you choose to, or we could put that money toward debt service. But there's 3 or 4 things that we could do in this project that we didn't originally advertise. The drawback of that is we got to send it all to state ed, take approval. It'll be 2052 before state ed, no, I shouldn't say that. It'll be a long time before state ed gets it back to us. So those are the 2 change orders. Items 609 through 615 are simple payments for the work done. You're paying $1.2 million in payments to Scafari, Greater Niagara Mechanical, John Danforth, Fry, Johnson Controls, and Stark. Local labor, project labor agreement, good work, schools are getting better, vestibules, greenhouses, security, air conditioning, et cetera, et cetera. So those are payments. They've been vetted by Earl, Richard, Becky. Those payments have been earned. Just so you know where we are in the project, we're 80% done with that $29.3 million project, and we've paid out 68.5% of it. Why doesn't it match? Because we're holding money in retainage. And when the job is done, we'll pay the retainage. So those are the items. We do have a meeting in 2 weeks on the 21st. There you see the 2 meetings in December. Can you believe we're talking about December? But we have a meeting on the 21st. It's scary when I see the month. So scary you see December up there. We have a meeting in 2 weeks for you to make a determination about whether you would like to support the personnel report and those 16 items. In the intervening 2 weeks, if you have a question, concern, you want to see the attic stock of the pumps, give us a call. All right, yeah, I don't know where they are, Nick, but
I've seen this Richmond thing, so we're not.
I'll have you go with Earl to find that. Mr. Petrosi, members of the board, that's all we have in terms of presentation. I would like to go through a number of updates with you with your approval. The first thing I'd like to do is go through the month of November for the listening audience and for our board members, of course. Very proud at Niagara Falls High School that on November 1st, we raised the Haudenosaunee flag. The Native American Club was pleased to present this and raise the flag in an appropriate way at Niagara Falls High School. I'm proud of the Native American Club. I want to give credit to teacher Jessica Forget, who leads that club. Last Saturday, the high school had 700 people in it. 700 people. Fabulous. fabulous event, better than ever. I've invited the chairs of that event to our 21st meeting, Simone Beckford from Abbott and Mallory Leo from Kelfis, along with the team, just to show you some photos of it. I'm super proud of that event. Tonight, tomorrow, Saturday, and Saturday afternoon, our alumni are doing Beautiful the Musical, a Carole King show. The 19th and 20th, our choir at Niagara Falls High School is teaming up with Wilson, the Wilson High School Choir. They're going to sing together. On the 19th, they're going to sing at Niagara Falls High School. On the 20th, they're going to sing at Wilson High School. Any donations, proceeds, there's no cost, will go to mental health supports. November 21st, I want to thank our partner Nazarene and Anis Akhtar, our good friends. Miss Buckman was the babysitter for their family, is that right? She was Miss Buckman's babysitter. Your kids turned out pretty well, by the way. They're going to give away 500 turkeys at Kelfis School to people that come by. And of course, I want to conclude with this, but I want to tell you that on Monday it's Veterans Day. And with great respect and honor, I want to say publicly thank you to our veterans for what you've done, what you've sacrificed, what you do. There'll be a brief ceremony at Bleneva Bond at 5 o'clock with a special recognition to our black and brown veterans. They're going to be singled out, but we are going to celebrate all veterans as well. A couple of other things. You've got to see the incredible mural that's going up on the side of Abbott. It was designed with stakeholder input. It is stunning, to say the least, and to not use hyperbole. I want to thank the National Area Heritage Foundation. I know that's Saladin, that's Sarah Capon, Ellie Sponger. This is all free, and they put it on the side of Abbott. Kudos to North Point and a young lady named Chelsea Krantz. They donated 600 hygiene kits to our clothes closets and family support center. So thank you very much, North Point and Chelsea. We are going to, Mr. Petrosi did sign the bond sale tomorrow. We're going to refinance that $15.8 million bond that you put forth in the last meeting. The savings estimate as of right now is about $320,000. So any savings, I think, is good savings, but that's going to go forward. I want to give credits to three people. Today, and this is no easy task, and only these three people know, our Title I application, which is $5.4 million worth of money, was approved in record time. I want to thank Rick Corella, who did most of the narrative work. I want to thank Richard Schwartfager from our finance team. Most importantly, Barbara Dotz, the most knowledgeable Title I person in New York State, who puts it all together, answers all the questions, dots all the I's, crosses all the T's, and keeps us on the straight and narrow to get that submitted. They turned it around in record time, and our $5.4 million was approved. So Rick, thank you. Richard, not here, thank you. And of course, Barbara, who loves to watch these meetings and on replay. Thank you, Barbara, for all the work you did in a record time in turning that around. This is for a future meeting. We'll need to go through the new graduation requirement rollout. The state released that. The only thing I could tell you in just quick form is the students that are sitting in 9th grade right now are going to be the first class to have only one diploma. The students sitting in 6th grade in our schools are going to be the first group with the new diploma requirements. So our intention is to get a roadshow together to start teaching and educating parents now about what that would look like. And there are, just like we heard myths and truths earlier, there are a lot of myths and truths about graduation. But the timeline is in. The class of 2027 will be the first class to have new graduation requirements. And we will, they're in sixth grade now. We'll help all of the parents and kids with that. I don't want to, and I won't, but I just want to, and I know Judy will pick this up for you next week. I wanted to acknowledge and give prayers and thoughts to the Means family that perished about a week ago at the Falls. I want to extend our continued support to Niagara Charter School for the grief that the whole staff and family are dealing with, and just prayers for those in that family and those that perished. But I do, as an educational institution, I do want to certainly give our support to those at the charter school. Those are just very difficult days, and I want them to know we're thinking about them. I end this evening, before I ask for the executive session, by thanking you for your attention during a very important presentation. I encourage those to see Dr. Schultz that are listening. You can get a hold of her. Join the Foundational Literacy Committee. I know I joined. I'm looking forward to those meetings. And I want to thank our presenters this evening. Unless there are questions, members of the board, we do need one executive session item. That is for a contract negotiation, and there will be no action taken at the conclusion of that executive session. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you, Nick. Rob, questions? All in favor, Nick? Rob, Jimmy? Brad? Tony? Everyone's a yay. Is Earl on? Earl, are you a yay?